So what if everything you were taught about money was really only half the story? Today we're going to dig into this powerful story about two fathers. One of them said the love of money was evil, and the other? He said the lack of money was. It's this incredible clash of mindsets that forces a choice, a really life-altering choice. All right, let's dive in.
You've probably heard this one a million times, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. It's that classic warning that money is just this corrupting force we should all be wary of. And this was the absolute core belief of the author's Poor Dad.
But then you get this, a total 180, a completely opposite point of view. The rich dad was convinced that the world's problems weren't caused by people having money, but by people not having it. And this single disagreement right here is the foundation for everything we're about to talk about.
So, you're probably wondering, how on earth does someone end up with two dads giving such wildly different advice? Well, the author, Robert Kiyosaki, had his biological father, a really smart, highly educated guy he calls his poor dad, and then there was his best friend's father, who became his mentor on all things money, his rich dad.
And this is where the story gets really fascinating. The poor dad, the one with a PhD and degrees from places like Stanford, struggled with money his entire life. Meanwhile, the rich dad, who didn't even make it past the 8th grade, became one of the richest men in all of Hawaii. It just goes to show you, financial success isn't always about what you learn in a classroom.
You know, you'd think this constant back and forth would be super confusing, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It forced him to actually think instead of just taking one person's word for it. He had to listen, compare the two arguments, and then, choose his own path. That process, that's what became his most valuable education.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. The biggest, most fundamental difference between these two men, well, it started with how they talked about the things they wanted. It literally all came down to one simple phrase. The poor dad's go-to phrase was, "I can't afford it." Now, that seems harmless enough, but think about it. It's a statement. It's a dead end. It basically tells your brain, okay, conversation over, nothing to see here, no problem to solve.
On the flip side, the rich dad absolutely forbade those words. He made him reframe it, turn it into a question, how can I afford it? And that tiny little shift, it changes everything. It's not a statement that shuts you down. It's a challenge that kicks your brain into gear and forces it to start searching for answers. Rich Dad actually had a name for the I can't attitude. He called it mental laziness. I love this analogy he used. He said, your brain is like a muscle. When you ask, how can I, that's like a workout. You're strengthening your financial mind. But when you just say, I can't, well, that's like letting that muscle get weaker and weaker.
Now, this difference in thinking, it wasn't just about little phrases they used. No, it seeped into everything. It totally shaped how they saw careers, risk, and what it even means to be financially secure.
And this table just lays it out so clearly. The difference is night and day. Look at the advice on a career. Poor dad says, find a good company to work for. Rich dad says, find a good company to buy. When it came to risk, poor dad's advice was, don't take any. Rich dad's was, learn how to manage it. See? These aren't just tiny disagreements. They're completely opposite ways of looking at the world.
Poor Dad's entire worldview was built around the idea of job security. He believed in the system, the steady paycheck, the retirement plan, the health benefits. He felt that since he worked so hard for his employer, he was entitled to be taken care of.
Rich Dad saw that same entitlement mentality as a trap. He thought it made people dependent, weak, and ultimately financially fragile. For him, real security didn't come from a paycheck someone else signed. It came from your own financial competence. The only way to be truly secure was to be self-reliant.
So you've got these two completely different maps for life being handed to you. The author had to make a choice. And this wasn't just about his bank account. It was a decision that was going to define his entire future. And ultimately, this whole story proves that our thoughts literally shape our reality. Poor Dad would often say things like, I'll never be rich. And, well, that became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Rich Dad, on the other hand, even when he was totally broke after a huge business loss, always referred to himself as a rich man. He understood the difference. Being broke is just a temporary situation. Being poor, that's a permanent state of mind.
You know that famous poem by Robert Frost? It's just the perfect metaphor for the choice he was facing. Two roads, two very different sets of advice, both leading to completely different places in life. And so, at just 9 years old, he made his decision. He chose to listen to his rich dad. Can you imagine?
It must have been a painful choice to essentially go against his own father's advice, but it was that choice that, just like the poem says, made all the difference.
And that really brings the whole lesson back to us, doesn't it? This story shows that our thoughts, even the words we choose every day, are literally the architects of our financial future. They can build walls around us, or they can open doors. So the real question is, which road are your thoughts taking you down?